You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio. This is Aperture and Shutter Speed. Welcome to Montgomery County's film and photography radio show. I hope everyone's having a great afternoon this Wednesday, March 26, 2014. I'm sitting here at the Lone Star Studios in downtown Conroe with the train behind me and also my best bud here, trmorephotos.com. Hello, trmorephotos.com. How are you?
Good. Windy Wednesday.
Yes. Today is not a really great photography day or film day, but because the golden hour never happened.
No,
whenever there's a day without the golden hour, then it's just, I mean, there's no point. But no, you don't agree?
No, I mean, it's true.
The golden hour is important.
It really is.
It really is.
In the morning or in the at dusk. Good time to shoot.
Yes, but welcome to Aperture and Shutter Speed. We got a great lineup today. We're closing out the month of portrait photography, and I know Tom has a couple little cool film products that he found and discovered for I would say the low end, or
as low as it goes.
Well, I mean, how do you put it? It's like the practical filmmaker. It's a one-man shop
that
filmmaker.
looks professional.
That makes it look professional.
It really does.
Well, if anything, that's one of the coolest things about the industry today is the individual's involvement of how to improve or achieve the shots that Hollywood gets. Because you have some dudes who are sitting there watching a movie, and I go, I wonder how they did that swoop with the camera. And then they build these crazy devices that allow us to achieve the swoops and the dives and, I mean, everything that it comes to getting that shot you want that makes it look like a Hollywood movie. But more products like that coming up. And like I said, we're going to be closing up portrait photography. I know we're still trying to get models in here. I think Tom scared them all away with all their
You couldn't find one with 7-foot legs.
Yeah, that's the only problem. I couldn't find the requirement for a 7-foot leg model. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so Tom, this is it's been a week since I last saw you. Anything new in development in the professional photography and film world?
Well, I mean, if you want to consider the Iflow, do you want to talk about that now, and you want to hold off on
Let's hold on. Let's.
Or let me just tell you then a little bit about what I've been doing. Talking with Kathy Mogler, who is the producer of the On the Town magazine, which is up-and-coming magazine, this beautiful magazine. I am putting together a video for her that includes different segments of activities that are going on in our community, Conroe, Montgomery, Willis, Woodlands, etc. And this particular video starts out with two beautiful eyes, brown eyes, and they are Cassandra Roshan's beautiful brown eyes. And
of the greater Conroe Lake Conroe. This isn't just some random person.
No, this isn't a random person walking out around the area. And what I've called it is Look at Who We Are. And the first shot says look, and then the next shot is a photo of a jet engine at the airport there in Conroe, and then the Galaxy logo is next, and that's at. And then who is Dick Schissler actually doing an interview. And
that's me, by the way.
Who We Are, and then Waterpoint Marina.
Do you storyboard this at all, or is this just you putting together
I just
beautiful?
Do it off the top of my head. Yeah. And then Waterpoint Marina with Jim Winkler, who is right there on 105, and Shannon Buchanan, who has 3 veterinarians in Conroe and in Willis, and some shots with a kid and her dog, and just really cute stuff. And also with the Dream Center, we feed a couple hundred people there, and doing a testimonial there about my beliefs and things like that and stuff like that. So
you're enjoying
that's
your camera?
The beginning. And also,
I mean,
I'm going to incorporate, just let me finish this, please, sir. Jay Sekulow is going to be speaking for the pregnancy.
It's this weekend, right?
Yeah, that's this weekend. So I'm going to include that. And he's been with the Supreme Court, arguing cases at the Supreme Court numerous times. And I'm very excited to have an opportunity to film him and photograph him with patrons and supporters of a very good cause and saving the unborn. Yeah.
I guess that's all right. Has nothing to do with photography or whatever.
Yeah,
you're going to be machine gunning photography, that right? Because I talked to one of the hosts from the PCN, or Pregnancy Assistant PACN, last week, and I made a joke about you taking photos of the same people or the same guy over and over and over. So I encourage her to help you out so you can make it entertaining, because you're going to take like 50 plus pictures of the same person posing with different people.
Right.
So,
right. But that's going to go on their wall, and nobody knows that.
No,
so,
I understand.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I kind of threw in that joke because they all look the same, and you got to spice it up, because I guess they really want a picture with Jay Sekulow.
Sekulow, yeah.
Sekulow.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds cool. You enjoying your camera? Tell the audience what kind of video camera you got recently. I think you got it in January, right? Is that when you got it?
Got it in January. It's a JVC 750, and it's a shoulder mount. It's an amazing pice of equipment.
It has a Canon lens, right?
It has a Canon lens, 30 to 400 zoom, and it does cinema quality photography.
Yeah, it looks good.
And it's really
I know,
sharp.
I look pretty.
Yeah, anyway, moving right along. And, I mean, the skin tones are just perfect, and the color is just brilliant, and I'm very excited to have something like that. In addition to that, having the 5D Mark III, which you can use, or I will use with the BoomBandit, possibly.
That's okay. We'll
That's
talk
something
more
we're
about
going to talk about. And,
that's cool.
Because we have gotten, someone commented that we don't talk enough technicals, and I really appreciate it when people comment and bring out what they would like to hear, because when you're doing a portrait shoot, there are things of interest that need to be given attention to. And
well, I know for the technical aspect of portrait photography, I always encourage those who've never done it, because one thing that's a blessing with digital photography, a digital DSLR, you can take unlimited pictures. And a lot of people I know, there's so many settings. I'm holding my 20D right now in my hands. And if you know, most of these cameras have different settings on a knob. So it's like they're little pictures. There's a ADEP, there's manual, there's AV, TV, P, and then there's a green square, and then there's a person, a mountain, a flower, a person running, and they all represent different settings for your camera. And I always encourage people, when they get the camera, just go around shooting a subject and just change it up, see what kind of lightings you get, and look at basically the metadata of each shot when you import it, because that information is important to know. If you shoot at 1/1000, what's that going to do to a half-lit room? And you're not going to be really get anything.
Right, it'll just be black.
But it's also cool to know those things, because if you want to do some artsy things like HDR photography, or if you want to mess in Photoshop, it's a great way to darken an area, and you start with the photo itself instead of importing it into Photoshop and then doing everything in post. Because if you're trying to achieve a certain shot, you can use the already settings on the camera to skip a lot of steps that you have to manipulate on Photoshop, because sometimes Photoshop can be a pain in the butt.
It's just a lot of work.
So,
and something you might want to consider investing in, it's about $70, is getting yourself what's called a loop. It's an eyepiece that you can put over the screen on your camera, especially if you're outside. It's very hard to see them, and it actually cups over
the eyepiece, the iframe.
Yeah, it's just a cup.
What's it called?
It's called a loop.
Loop.
Mm-hmm. And about $70. And again, you can just put one eye over it after you take the shot, and you can really zoom in on and get a true rendition of what you shot, and not have to run inside and find a canopy or something, or get under a tree because it's so bright outside. So that's a very good move for ensuring that, it's a real hassle to go out if you drive to a location, it's not in focus, man. A photo that's out of focus is a dead photo, unless you are doing that, and I said this last week, doing that specifically for an effect to blur your image. But you really need to have very, very sharp photos.
And that's what today's camera is like. My camera, I would say it takes what I want, but the technology in a 20D is 10 years old, and it's amazing what today's Rebels and things like D100s can do that are just, it's basically 3 times as better than my camera, and it's not even as expensive.
But keep in mind, when you do go up and get another camera, if your camera is 10 years old and you get another camera, is that you've got a very big learning curve to go through. And if you buy from Canon, they have an amazing backup technical support that if you call them, they've got all of their cameras right there, and they will talk to you literally for hours about your camera and walk you through any issues you have. You can call them for the rest of your life at no charge, and they will support you all the way through. And that's one rub I have against JVC is they literally have no support. There's one guy I can call, and he's in New Jersey, and when he's not frozen to the pavement, he'll talk to me. He's a very nice guy. He's been very supportive, but I mean, there's just one guy, and that's just really strange. So Canon has a wonderful support system.
Yeah, they've been in the business pretty much almost the longest.
Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. We're going to be taking a quick break on Aperture and Shutter Speed. We're going to get back into close-up portrait photography and kind of recap what TR More Photos and I have been talking about for the past month, for the month of March. That if you didn't know, that is what has been our theme the entire month, is portrait photography. And there's a lot of cool things. Man, portrait photography is one of the most fun activities you can do as a learning tool for photography, because like I said, it's about control. You get complete control over the scenario of your shot, and you can really mimic anything, manipulate anything. You can do some really neat stuff. But when we get back, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be back probably in the next couple minutes. So you're listening to
IR Lone Star Radio,
yeah,
Aperture and Shutter Speed.
We'll be right back.
And when she asked me which one I love the best, I tear over my shirt and I show her.
Hello, I'm Mark Hader.
And this is Cindy Cochran inviting you to join us on the Cindy and Mark Show each weekday morning from 10 to 11 here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Super, Cindy, but I believe it's the Mark and Cindy Show.
Huh? Yes, it is, Mark. And it's broadcast live on Lone Star Internet Radio here in beautiful downtown Conroe. Oh, the exciting things we'll talk about, the interesting guests you'll get to meet, the wonderful gifts we'll give away, and the tons of...
Wait. Gifts? There are no gifts. I'm not giving away anything. Why do you get to decide on what we do? It's Mark and Cindy, remember?
Oh, yeah? Well, so ladies and gentlemen, tune in and we'll all find out who gets to decide stuff. Weekday mornings at 10 here on Lone Star Internet Radio. How was that?
It could have been worse. You could have sung your part.
Oh, yeah, wait. It's the Mark and Cindy Show. The Mark and Cindy Show. The Mark and Cindy Show. The Mark and Cindy Show.
Did you know there are over 800 abused children in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Susan, a volunteer with CASA Child Advocates of Montgomery County. April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month. CASA Child Advocates trains and supports volunteers to be the voice of children who have been removed from their home because of abuse or neglect. We need volunteers just like you to speak up for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CASASpeaksForKids.com or call 936-441-5437.
And when she asked me which one I love the best, I tear over my shirt and I show her Rosie on my chest, 'cause I'm a wanderer.
And we're back with Aperture and Shutter Speed. You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio. We're here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We're also on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But we're here talking about closing up the month of portrait photography. If you didn't know what Aperture and Shutter Speed is, we are Montgomery County's photography and film show. Having a blast. I want you guys to get involved. Other than Facebook, you can always call in at 936-647-3776. We're accepting phone calls at this moment. So please call in. It'd be fun. Talk to trmorephotos.com, and we can make fun of them. Yeah. But so we're back into portrait photography, and we're going to close it up. If you didn't know, really what we do when we do these themes is I bring an amateur perspective to the scenario, and then Tom over here, trmorephotos.com, talks about the professional side. And a couple weeks ago, the one thing I like talking about is creating your own little studio and then making it mobile. Because as a person who loves photography, a lot of people who don't know anything about photography just assume people look at your camera, oh, that's a big camera, you must know a lot. So you better have a good backing. And having a mobile studio really impresses people. And we went over some of the cool little ideas. What you can do is get some lamps from Lowe's, get some garage lamps, and then tissue paper, and then cover the lamps with tissue paper
or tracing paper.
Yeah. And then you get reflectors, and just have this stuff in your car. I mean, your goal is not to fill up the car where it's a hassle to get in and out, but you can literally go out and get a Rubbermaid Tupper thing, a big one, and fill it with all this stuff and just keep it in your trunk.
Yeah.
And I know probably one of the most useful tools, and a lot of people don't realize, are clamps. Clamps really help out for setting the lamps, setting cloths up as backdrops. You can do use it as reflectors, because one thing that a lot of amateurs don't have are assistants. And assistants really help out for mobility with a shoot, because the sun's changing as you're shooting. But we don't have that as an amateur. So you gotta have the ability to have some poles. Like I know what I used to use is microphone stands. Because I already had microphone stands. I had access to them. And those things can go pretty tall. They can go up to like 7 feet.
Sure.
So we clamp stuff to it all the time, and especially reflectors and things like that. It was just something easy, and you had about 5 minutes to take your photo, of course. But that was probably one of my favorite things we talked about when it came to portrait photography, because you could set up your own home studio for roughly around $300, $400, to the point where the average person wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Unless they go in there and see what you got.
Yes. I mean, I'm talking about the after shot. Because
Right.
one thing, too, I know I've met is, man, someone's coughing back there. One thing I always liked is you meet those people who are extremely good at Photoshop. And Photoshop has unlimited possibilities, and you can actually make any photo a professional photo, but sometimes you can tell. And me personally, I can tell pretty fast. But the untrained eye, the normal person who buys the Vogue magazine, they don't know. And I mean, 99% of all magazine covers are somewhat photoshopped, even the ones that are in photography magazines, because that's how much control they want over. Like, we're not going to put an unedited shot on the cover, but maybe inside it will say unedited. But I mean, basically every magazine you read. But with portrait photography, it is about coming off as a professional and looking like a good photo, because it's your reputation. It's similar to golf, where you judge yourself, you do your own score, so you can cheat all you want, and then and that's what I like about photography, because you can cheat. I like cheating, and you can cheat many ways to take that good portrait shot, especially in Photoshop. But I know, Tom, what were your feelings on this month's talk of portrait photography?
Just quickly talking about posing. If you say your daughter plays tennis, for instance, and you want to take some shots of her, take her to the tennis court, you can have her sit down, put her knees up, have her tennis racket there, and keep in mind that if you just make minor changes in a person's positioning, where if they have one hand on their knee, the other leg is fully horizontal, put one hand at their side or kind of to their back in that position, and roll the shoulders toward the camera is one shot. You can have them with, like they're not necessarily a cannonball look, but, hugging their knees and looking, or putting their head on their knees, holding the racket. You can get on the ground and shoot. So if you have a royal blue, screaming blue sky, you can shoot the sky as a background and catch a little bit of the tennis net in the shot. And you can get 5, 6, 7 shots out of one position just by having them close their eyes or look up, look away from the camera, look into the camera directly, smile, big smile, just a very, like, I call it a Mona Lisa smile, and just take advantage of that position so that you're utilizing your creativity and you have something to choose from, not, well, this is the pose and that's all you get, dear. And then, just take, we've talked about brick walls and have them stand next to a brick wall and different positions that way, or have just a little bit of some shrubs or some greenery that's just capturing, say, the corner of the screen, not necessarily the whole background. You can even bring in your own little background items. So that just little hints of things just do a lot to project interest, and not just a boring sky, or again, avoid shooting cars in the background or porta cans or, garbage cans. Just be conscious of what's in the background, because, it's a lot of work if you do have Photoshop background to sit there and erase all that stuff. So if you just do a little planning, look around, take a time to look around. If you have an entrance sign in a parking lot, you don't want to shoot that, or an exit sign, or things like that are just ugly. Just be just use common sense, your logic of frame that in your head, what it's going to look like, and try to simplify as much as you can so that you can not waste a lot of time and have to call Dick Schissler to go and Photoshop this out. I love this shot, but, I was a bonehead and I didn't look at what was in the content in the foreground and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. That was a mouthful.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, there's always the thing I liked about, like I said, but also with the ideas of building a little studio, because you really are building a studio when it comes to portrait photography, because I said it's about control. So lighting is key, or the way Tom likes to say is lighting is king.
King, yes, absolutely.
It really is in a lot of things, and especially in film and photography. But also your subject is important too, because like you said, the way they position their bodies and things like that. It's about getting that natural shot. If you're shooting a person and you're looking for something that's kind of like just a standard stock, this is the athlete photos, don't do anything, don't smile. I mean, those are kind of similar or easy to do. But I would also have more fun. I would have fun with it, especially with lighting, because you can do a lot of cool things with lighting. Probably my favorite is doing backlighting, because you're creating shadows and you create this. It's kind of like you're looking at a person in a different spectrum, and it adds a lot of depth and to people, and you can create some really neat shots, like manipulating the lighting around somebody, especially changing the tones with tissue paper and tracing paper, because you can really change somebody's mood if you use an orange or a red, and then you can make it a more of a like a dull when you use like a blue, and it's just kind of like it has that office look to it. And then if you use the oranges and things, it has that brighter, especially if the person's skin is fair. A person with fair skin is easy. It's really fun to manipulate that, because they have the best facial expressions when you're trying to use different colors. But then also you can do it with non-living things like fruit and vases and things like that. Because I know probably the most interesting world of portrait photography, a lot of people don't realize, is all the products you see in magazines, and especially food. Because if you think about going to any type of fast food and you look at their menu, that's all produced by a professional photographer. And going through that, if you just go on to any like YouTube and just type in McDonald's photography, they have there's little documentaries about how they made the Big Mac look like it is, and you'd be surprised what you see, because like I said, control, my opinion is control's number one, but yours is lighting. But control, they literally use fake food for it. They don't even cook the meat; they just brown it. They literally dye it with a paintbrush. So it's about how it appears, and then of course the lighting they use try to make a little glow from the cheese and a light reflection, like it's juicy kind of look.
Or take a syringe and squirt some ketchup and mustard on the side.
It's really one of the neatest things, because those are artists to me. Like when people say photography is art, I'm like, yeah, but you need to meet the people who do the food, because it really is art, what they do and how they make. My favorite is how they do the French fries, because I don't even think they're real French fries. It's like they don't really deep fry the French fry. They actually make like a dough, and it makes it look like a really fluffy and brown and delicious. But yeah, so you'd be amazed. Just go on there and look up McDonald's food photography, and
it's hard. It's very difficult.
And those people get paid money. They get paid to do what they do, because they create that from scratch. Yeah. But that's one of the coolest things I liked about photography, portrait photography, because a lot of people don't think about how portrait photography is used in their world. It's all over. Any type of advertising you see, that's basically portrait photography. And I know, probably what got me started with the idea of portrait photography, if you ever watched Saturday Night Live, where in between their commercial breaks, they had like bumpers that lead in, and they had like a still image of the visiting guests. I always wondered why they did that, because it was just kind of strange to me. But the reason they did it is because people who would be tuning in the middle of the show, and I was surprised by this, because a lot of people didn't know who the host was. And so they put these photos. You know what I'm talking about? When you watch Saturday Night Live and they have they come from a commercial break and it has a photo and it has music in the background. They're doing like a karate chop or something silly, because it's there to remind you who the host is. Because sometimes the next skit doesn't have the host in it immediately, and I thought that was really interesting because it seemed like an out of place way to use their time. Because it's really important what you show, what time how you utilize your time on those kind of shows. And that's why I was like, man, so some person in-house does that. Because you don't see those photos anywhere else.
Right.
Am I right? Like, you don't see those Saturday Night Live photos. Like, it is just for Saturday Night Live. And it was part of the package deal because I was listening to Tina Fey. I think it was on some podcast talking about the development of how they wrote all the screens and stuff like that, and like wrote all the scenes. And what they did as an actor who are visiting guests, what they had to go through. Because they have to be part of it for a couple days, so they actually have an idea of what they're supposed to do, and that was part of the itinerary, was to go take photos, and that's what they do. They had a green screen behind them, and they would take them doing silly faces, and it really wasn't overdone because they had a green screen, so they had a lot of control over the environment, and that's what really got me thinking about portrait photography because of the way they use it. And some person just goes, hey, we need this. We need something to remind people who the host is.
Well, I guarantee you, if you spend 4 or 5 hours photographing someone, especially multiple days, when you see that person again, you have this personal connection with that person that is pretty amazing. Because if you develop the film or Photoshop it or whatever you want to say, you see their eyes very closely, you see their face, their features. You see them in a light that very few people see them in, and it's very cool. It's an intimacy.
Well, I think
that's very interesting.
Well, you should always have that in the front of your mind when you're dealing with the subject, because sometimes when you're taking photos of like a family, and there's boundaries when you're taking these photos, and you don't want to cross certain boundaries, especially with children. You're trying to make them happy, but really you're really just trying to get them out, because kids are probably one of the most difficult subjects to deal with.
Absolutely.
And
very short concentration span.
And that's why your preparation with all the things we talked about, like the lighting and getting the positions right and getting them where they're sitting, because the faster you can get that taken care of, the faster you can start shooting, and that way you can get them out. But yeah, so that, I think it was a cool month of talking about portrait photography. If you guys have any questions or anything, I know we're just here chatting, but do call in 936-647-3776 or email us. You can email me at dick@irlonestar.com or at trmorephotos.com. You can contact it through him on his website at trmorephotos.com, and ask any questions about portrait photography, because we love talking about this kind of BS. And it's always fun to learn new things. And actually, coming up next is what we're going to talk about is new cool little things that you can use for film.
Yeah, $149.
Yeah, you're looking at spending a maximum of $300 for some products that will make you look like a professional. Because it's all about the end result.
Amazing.
Really, that's what a lot of people don't realize with photography and film. It's all about what happens in the end.
So let's talk technicals.
So
let's
yeah,
get technical.
Yeah, so we'll be back on Aperture and Shutter Speed. You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio. It's 3:30. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, I'm Tina, and I will be your host for a new program on Lone Star Internet Radio. I call it Retro Saturdays. Every Saturday at 5 p.m., I will be playing music from the 1930s to the 1970s. I will play a different genre of music every weekend of the month. You will hear big band music, jazz, 70s classic rock, and 60s oldies. Join us for Retro Saturdays at 5 p.m. every Saturday of the month. Go to irlonestar.com for more information on Retro Saturdays on Lone Star Internet Radio.
SPCA PetSnap of Montgomery County is a 501c3, all-volunteer-based rescue and adoption organization with a no-kill policy for healthy and adoptable animals. Our name states what we believe: Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. People eliminate the suffering. Spay, neuter, adopt, please. We rescue abandoned, abused, or homeless animals, do whatever is needed to make them healthy and happy, and then we find them loving forever homes. We envision a county where every companion animal finds a permanent and compassionate home, where communities are enriched by the special bond between people and animals, where cruelty no longer exists, and where every home practices responsible pet ownership. You can contact us at www.spcaofmc.com. The SPCA PetSnap of Montgomery County encourages you to think adoption first.
At Jazzy Junk, volunteers reclaim, restore, and recycle. Jazzy Junk is a non-profit resale storefront where you will discover wonderful, unique finds at very affordable prices on furniture, antiques, books, art, home decor, and more. When you shop Jazzy Junk, you support New Danville, a community for adults with developmental disabilities. We receive new donations daily, so plan a visit to Jazzy Junk today to find that perfect item or gift. Our motto is here today, gone today. So remember to hurry in and shop often for the best selection. Jazzy Junk is located in the outlets at Conroe on League Line Road and I-45 North. Call 936-441-4500 or visit our website, jazzyjunk.org. That's JUNQUE for more information and store hours.
You're listening to IR Lone Star Radio with Aperture and Shutter Speed. I'm Tom Moore with trmorephotos.com, and my partner in photography is
Dick, me, Lone Star Internet Radio,
Schissler.
Aperture, Shutter Speed.
What I want to talk about is stability. One of my pet peeves is in videography when the camera is moving around. And there is a new product out to add to stability. It's called Iflow. And it is a portable dolly that is 8 inches long. You can put your phone on it. You can put a GoPro on it. You can put a DSLR up to 2 pounds on it. It has these little rubber wheels that absorb vibration. When it's opened up, you set your phone on it and you can roll it across a flat surface like a table or a countertop. And then it will also collapse. It has springs that draw it together, that those wheels come around, and you can put it on a railing, like a 2.5 inch railing that you would go down steps to, stabilize people going down steps so they don't fall. We can put that guy on it, and you can run it horizontally, vertically. It can be put on a railroad track if you want to, I don't know what this thing is about photographing people on railroad tracks these days, but if you want to put your girlfriend, sit her down on these hard rocks in the tar and photograph her with the train coming preferably, you can do that. And you can take like a 2x4 and put it on some sort of support, whatever you want to use, 2 tables, chairs, and run that 2x4. It could be 12 foot long, and you can put it on a string and drag it across that 2x4 and just get beautiful, clear shots that have no vibration whatsoever. And the wheels absorb all of vibration, and that's been an issue too, because if there's any bump at all, it will pick it up. So that's it, the Iflow portable dolly. The cost is $149. Amazing.
Well, I think what Tom is also not telling everybody is this was a part of a Kickstarter.
Yeah. And these guys got donations,
yeah,
$50,000 donation, and they put this thing together because there's such a demand. I was looking online, and a fluid head, for a video camera, the price, the highest dollar I found was $17,000 for the head. That's all. just for the head. So this is $149, guys. It is a beautiful apparatus, and it's fully functional. It's not a gimmick. It's not a joke. It works, and you can put it anywhere, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and what's neat about it is it really has a lot of functionality. And like you said, you can put it on a railing system. You can put it on the floor. You can put it on basically what it looks like a clamp. Yeah. With wheels, and so you can do a lot of neat things. And also, it goes for what it's meant for is DSLRs, GoPros, and smart devices. And you're going to be spending a little bit more money than $150 if you want to get the full features. Because I'm on their website. If you go to their website, which is iflowpro.com, and you go to buy now, basically they have a smartphone adapter for a certain price for $40, or you can buy the whole kit for $180. Which is basically you're saving $10 if you do that.
Right.
And this is the one thing I love about this kind of stuff is you don't know, no one knows about it until you meet somebody who has it, or you're looking for a certain need. Because I know a lot of things when it comes to film, you always try to figure out how you achieve those shots. And this thing is such an individual scenario use tool, but you can it changes the way you want to set up a shot because you have it. And you're like, hey, man, I got this thing called an iFlow, and we can do this really cool shot on the railroad tracks. But and it's just you can just do some neat things with it, including I know probably what I would be using it for is something at feet shots, basically everything that's at the foot or at the bottom third of every shot, because you can do that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, if you want to do like a really interesting shot of someone getting out of a car and they accidentally step into a puddle of mud, instead of having to get down on your hands and knees and get your camera down there, you've got this little guy, and you can just put a 2x4 down there as a railing and just scoot that thing across.
You basically have a portable mobile tripod.
Right.
And when I say mobile, I mean like a Jimmy almost. Not really a Jimmy, but a railing system.
But it's a Jimmy concept.
Yeah,
it really
is. I think that's really cool, especially if you find some locations that you can utilize already existing environments, like a long railing going down. So if you want to do a shot of somebody going down walking down the stairs, you can control it by using the already existing railing.
And you don't have it bouncing up and down, which is a big issue. Now talk to people about a Jimmy real quick so they know what you're talking about, because not everybody knows what it is.
If you're listening and you don't know what a Jimmy is, I encourage you to go to Google and type in Jimmy and see what. And it's not Jimmy Fallon and it's not Jimmy Kimmel. Just do Jimmy camera. And basically what it is, it's an anchor system that flows your camera up and down. So when you see on the movie sets that they have a camera that's really tall on a pole, that's basically a Jimmy.
Right.
And there's so many different types, and they're all. That's one of the coolest devices to use, just because it feels like you're
flying.
Yeah, you're flying.
You have this
feel like you're flying.
Effect. Yeah.
And they've been around for 30, 40, probably more than 40 years.
Right.
I mean, that's the most iconic thing when you see the director in his chair and he's flowing with the back end of the Jimmy, because the concept is the camera's on one side and you have weight on the other, and then you have a pivot in the middle. And there's different types. You have like dolly system Jimmys where you can actually push it on dolly, and then you have the full hydraulic system where you're a director sitting in a chair and it's like playing a video game. You're literally going up and down.
20,000.
So you're gonna be spending some money on that. But I think what we could do is talk about more about Jimmys later on Aperture and Shutter Speed, especially if the audience wants to hear more about it, because I had some home remedies that I know I did when I was in high school, and then also in the future. I can't imagine what's on Kickstarter now. Can't imagine.
Well, you can build your own Jimmy, just take some.
Yeah, I mean, it probably costs you around $300, $400, but
less than that.
Well, now you found another one. What's this device? It's kind of like a handheld Jimmy.
Right. It's called a BoomBandit. You can go to BoomBandit.com, and it's a portable boom, and it's $250, and it tilts up and down. It's basically what it is a monopod. 3 monopods put together with compression fittings, and it's one monopod goes down to the ground and you kind of secure it with your foot, just backing it up with your foot, and then the other 2 are just bars, and you can swivel it back and forth. You can go up and down. You can make your camera fly. It's not really designed for a heavy, 3-4-pound camera like a DSLR camera, but it's more for the GoPro, which is very popular, which this show is recorded on, by the way, and also, of course, an Android. And
all our shows on Lone Star, the GoPros.
Right.
I mean, and the mobility, I think that's what's really neat too about these Jimmies is the weight of these cameras are getting so small.
Right.
It allows the creative people going, man, now that I only need to handle about 4 to 6 pounds of weight, we can create something that's as small as the BoomBandit.
Right.
Because the BoomBandit, it collapses into, talk about a mobile studio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would go in your little Rubbermaid
Yeah.
tubber thing, and man, you can fit so much cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you can also collapse it so it looks like a handle or a stock on a, say, a shotgun or something, and you can put it up against your shoulder and just pivot your body left and right or up and down and just get super smooth panning, which is very difficult to do by holding because our hands shake. I mean, we're just, bodies. I mean, we have nerves and we shake, and especially get in a nervous environment, you're going to start shaking, man. Shake, rattle, and roll. And so zoom around, do some zooming, dude, and get you a BoomBandit. You can go to Adorama and pick that puppy up.
Yeah? How much is the BoomBandit?
That's 250 clams. And
but what's neat about these kind of deals, you'll find people who take it the step further. Because
somebody's going to say, hey, well, that's a great concept, but let's add this dimension to it.
Yeah. And it allows you that more personal, fast reaction shooting. Because the thing that I don't really like about Jimmies is you're kind of stuck with how big the device is.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of space.
And I've hit so many things like walls and lighting and stuff like that because you don't really think about it.
And they fall over.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely fall over, and that makes a big old crash. But
and your boss doesn't like that.
He doesn't. Yeah, right in front of him too. But what's cool about the BoomBandit, it's personal, so it's flexible, and you don't have to depend. Like I think another mentality of an amateur filmmaker is you don't have any assistants,
right.
So you can't create the ultimate shot because you need like 6 people on lighting. You'd be amazed being on a set for like $150 million budget movie. Mm-hmm. Because it's nuts how many people are actually on set. Like I know for Lord of the Rings, they had at least 30 people on set doing stuff.
You said they had like 100 cameras or something? What did you say?
But that was for, The Hobbit. He had in his production, he had over 100 red-eye cameras.
Wow.
And red-eye cameras are around $150,000 each now, I think. But, I mean, if you imagine having 100 of them. And that wasn't just for one shot. Because the reason he is so efficient as a director is his turnout time. Peter Jackson is. So if you can imagine, he turned out 3 blockbuster movies, and he filmed it in a year in like 3 months, which is pretty phenomenal in the industry. And the reason because one thing that he's really good at is organization of set directors or like backup. Their second unit directors basically. So they had a site B, site A, site C for all their film needs, and the way they did it was amazing because he would work with the core actors, and then unit director B would work with the basically the aerial shots and getting the stand-ins and stuff like that for back shots, so you don't really need the actor to be in. And then they had a team who would reevaluate all the roles and go compare it to the soundboard or the storyboard and say, hey, we didn't get the shot, send it to Unit C director, see if he can get it. And so the organization for that movie was awesome. I would love to be part of something like that grand of a scale, because they really. And then I bet they would use. I bet the C unit director would use a BoomBandit because they don't have all the nice equipment as Peter Jackson would on site.
As they go down the food chain.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, we need the shot. You got to figure it out. And he's like, oh, I found this thing for $250 called a BoomBandit.
And the BoomBandit would be really cool too for moms with these new babies. Exciting moment, and you can get that sucker all the way down to the ground, and the
without
baby would be
your back.
Fascinated by seeing that thing. They'd come after it, and break your back. And then you can, in addition, you can of course use the iFlow and put a 2x4 down there and just shoot your child as it flows along the 2x4, your little baby, and that would just be a really memorable thing to do. So this is IR Lone Star Radio with TR More Photos.
And me, Dick, with Aperture and Shutter Speed. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to announce what we're going to be talking about next month, in the month of April. I know this weather, it's not going to be going with our theme, but hopefully it starts improving, because I kind of need some sun for our theme. So we'll announce what we're going to be talking about next month, and also any cool news and things before we end our show. You're listening to Aperture and Shutter Speed. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Tina, your host from Retro Saturdays. I wanted to invite you to visit the Lone Star Studios here in downtown Conroe, Texas. We're all volunteers here, and we need your help in serving the Montgomery County area. Radio media is a fun field to be in. Lone Star Internet Radio serves Montgomery County with news, current events, local programming, and of course, music. If you are interested in volunteering and sharing your talents in media, go to irlonestar.com and let us hear from you. Lone Star Internet Radio, serving Montgomery County from the heart of downtown Conroe.